Welcome to GM Tips. GM Rick here. And I kind of wasn't totally accurate the last time. I said I'd do one more cast before the end of the year. Actually, be two. This one's kind of a wrap up of the year, and then I'm going to have goals for 2017 is probably my last one of the year coming in because I think goals are always good things. Um, you got to set yourself, we set goals. It's kind of funny, we set goals in life, we set goals in our job, we set goals for long term and short term for other areas of our growth and development. It's kind of silly we don't set goals for GMing and for playing. you know it's important to us, so why wouldn't we? So that's one of the things I'm going to talk about. GM tips today. What are we going to discuss? I think I want to do a rehash of what I learned in 2017, or maybe even what I grew up in 2016. I'm sorry, not 2017. Got my 2017 thinking. What I grew in 2016. And I think it's always good to take a look back as GMs and ask yourself, and DMs, and ask yourself, how did I do? What did I do? What did I grow in this year? Um, I think self assessment is always good. I don't think that self berating is good. You don't want to sit there and berate yourself and belittle yourself as a GM, but you do want to take a look at what did I do good, or what did I grow in, and where do I want to go with things. So I made a list. It's a good thing. And I'm learning more and more, and this is one of the things that goes with organization. Make yourself lists. If you make yourself lists, then you can go through the different lessons and things that you want to do. And you can set it somewhere that you can always go back and take a look at, because we often forget where we've come from and where we're going. And I think it's always good to have that and take a look back and say, where have I been and where do I want to go in life? So the 7 lessons of 2016, and no politics, no other things. We're not going to This is a political free zone. I get enough politics on Facebook and I try to limit those. But this is a political free zone. So those of you who want me to ever talk politics, not going to do it. Just not going to do it. All right. So, lessons we learned. That was a joke, by the way. Uh, Number one, allow players to write their story. And I think that's something, I preach it in my GM tips a lot. But preaching it and doing it are two different things. And I think more than anything this year, I have really and truly, and I'll say it started last year actually in 2015, but from 2015 to 2016, I have really allowed the players to write their own story, even though I have paths. So, say I take one of these adventure paths, kind of like this new one here, okay? And I go through it with my players and build a campaign. At the end of the day, the players write their story. I have the molding and the surrounding, components to give them structure. And I do that, and we kind of talked about that on my last rehash of what's the GM's roles and what's the players' roles. And I really feel like I've lived up to what the GM's roles are. And for me, that's a huge deal. I don't know if you've ever thought about it, but for me, it's a huge, huge deal in letting the players write their own stories. So no matter if they go to the left or to the right or up the mountain I don't want them to go up, I let them write their own stories. Their reactions to things, their way of solving things, their unique way of looking things is their story. And I do not try to control this in any way, other than just trying to keep them gently on a path to the goal, the end goal. That's about it. Beyond that, it is up to them how they write their stories. And I think the players have enjoyed that very much. You can ask a few of my players. If you're on Facebook, you can look up Paul on there. Paul's one of my players. Scott's one of my players. You can ask them, do I let them write their own destiny? Pretty much within reason. In other words, I don't let them have everything they want with their character. I don't let them have every ability they want. But when it comes to how they react and how they deal with the story, it is up to them. And I do not try to guide them. Once in a while, I'll put some gentle advice or thoughts for food for thought, but their choice is their choice at that time. And I let them have that. So that's one area I've really grown in. Second is adapt to the PC's actions and solutions. And I think that's a subset of writing their own story. I do adapt the stories, the modules, the path to what the players do and how they react and how they want to combat the challenges and the obstacles set before them. And I really do adapt that. Nothing is ever the same. In fact, I'll adapt challenge ratings, I'll adapt DC scores, I'll adapt other things depending on where they're at difficulty wise. I don't want something to be too easy, but yet I don't want it to be so far out the reach that they can't achieve it either. There's that in between challenge point. And I got to say, the last session was the most funny for me because the guy that usually rolls the best, i.e., Scott, rolled though probably had his worst set of saves and rolls, and it was almost humorous at times, and even he had to chuckle at his characters just not making his rolls. And that's so much fun when things don't always go your way because some interesting and funny things come out of it. And usually you don't die most times, but you might get polymorphed, you might get older, you might get a little less wiser, you might be a little less charismatic next time. But at the end of the day, the roles are the roles. So I really allow them to have their own solutions and thoughts on how they want to do their solutions. Number 3, learn to work with all player types. That is a huge key for me. If you look at my group is comprised of very different personalities. Cliff is not the same as Scott. Scott is not the same as Paul. Paul is not the same as Brian. Max is not the same as Josh. They're very different personalities, and I love them for it. They are so unique and so much fun. I am truly fortunate to have a very mixed group when it comes to personality types. I probably can go down the list, and I have one of every type in the GM's guide, which I like. It's kind of fun to have a little bit of challenge there. And as a GM, I know we have certain types of player personalities we like and we want, but unfortunately, life doesn't deal you those kind of hands. You get the hands you're dealt. And if you learn to adapt to those type of player types, the adventure and the campaigns are much more fun. And I truly believe that. I have gotten less upset about maybe a player type rubbing me wrong or not going how I think they should go, and really just embracing the uniqueness of each player type. And that's difficult. I'm not going to say it's easy as a GM or a DM. It is very difficult. We want to believe we're open minded. Most times, we're not. I have come to find some of the people who tout they're the most open minded usually are the most closed minded. And it's sad to say that, but I have come to believe it. I've read people's Facebooks where they've said, well, if you don't agree with my opinion of this, you might as well remove yourself now. I'm thinking, wow, aren't we the tolerant type? And yet I just kind of laugh because they're the people who want to be understood and tolerated. You must tolerate them. You must do their things. Kind of the same way as players. You must be this way. You must love this. Not really. You learn to adapt to everybody. If you're truly open-minded, most things are not going to bother you in life. So that's what I'm finding is how to be that way. I am very opinionated. I'm not going to lie. Watch my GM tips. I am very opinionated. And like people say, and I'm going to say this, opinions are like buttholes. Everyone has one, and most of them stink. And yeah, most of my opinions probably stink at the end of the day, but you got to have some fun with them. I'm honest about the fact that I am opinionated, and I'm growing to be more accepting and understanding and open-minded, I think, as a whole. Research the campaign material more. Boy, I am doing that so much more. Whether it's reading on the campaign world of Golarion, whether it's trying to understand orders and different groups on a world, whether it's putting my own groups in there, whether it's just understanding the nation that they're in better. I am really trying to do deeper research so that when players and situations come up, I'm able to answer it in a cohesive and very flowing way. I think sometimes we read material and we want to just automatically adapt it and we don't read the material for what it is. And sometimes it doesn't need adapting, or sometimes adapting it wouldn't make sense. So I think reading and prepping better is a key for me, and I will continue to do that. I think it's just invaluable when you're GMing to just go in and fly by night and just open one of these and say, okay, let's go, is very, very foolish. I think what it does for you is it sets you up for disaster. And so researching not just this book, but all the realms that they're going to touch and the cities and understanding them better makes for smoother GMing and in-game play. I just really think so. Um, so that's another one. Collaborating with other DMs and GMs. Boy, that is just, for me, folks, that has really been an insightful thing. I really believe the more we collaborate, the more we talk with other GMs and DMs, the more we get their thoughts, the more we bounce ideas off, the better off we are. And again, you may not agree with the opinions they give you, but at least listen to them and think about them. Because sometimes they make better sense than the things that we think are the best things. And maybe they can point out some things in us that we don't see otherwise, or maybe we're limiting ourselves in. And that collaboration helps us to wake up and go, wow, I just never thought of it that way. Or that never came to mind, or I didn't realize that was so important to me. And I think collaboration just, it gets the creative juices flowing. It really gets, not only do you help yourself, but you help the GMs and DMs you're collaborating with. As a group, you become a group kind of think tank, and it helps a lot. You think about some of the best ideas come out of think tanks, they really do. And especially when they're open minded think tanks that just are bouncing ideas and creativity, after a while, it just makes sense. It helps us to really get outside of our box. So I plan to do a lot more of that. That's going to go to a 2017 goal. Much more collaboration with my friends that are gamers and GMs on Twitter and Facebook. I think, well, even these videos, perfect example. These videos used to go towards 30 minutes, as you guys remember, and sometimes 40 minutes. I had a fellow GM come in, and yes, he's kind of young to things. Well, let's call him a DM because he focuses a little more on Dungeons and Dragons. So I don't want to take that away from him. He really gave me some great comments one day about length of video and staying on point and trying not to give as much accolades to my fellow and shout outs to my fellow GMs and DMs and other shows that podcast or maybe video cast. And I think he's helped me to make much better GM tips from it. And I really appreciate the input he gave me because it took a lot of, honestly, it took a lot of courage to speak out and say to the guy who you're watching, hey, you know what? I like your stuff, but this will make it better for you. And I think for me, that's going to be a huge deal, is listening to and really allowing collaboration. Uh, let's go to another thing, managing my time better and reducing prep time. That I think for me is a real key, and sometimes that's difficult to do because we can need our prep time to get things ready. And I'm not saying don't prep, but be careful with how you spend your time. Sometimes I think we spend so much time absorbed in getting things right or just exactly as we want them. And that's great in some ways, but it also leads to a lot of burnout in my mind because we're doing all this work, we're doing all these great things, we're trying to get all these things done. And sometimes we feel underappreciated, or we feel like people just don't really look at our time and respect it a lot. And for me, I think less time, more is less. Um, let's not spend as much time throughout our week really prepping. Spend a little less time. Put away the books, put away the things. Okay, read them a little bit at night before bed, but don't spend as much time consumed in them all the time. Sometimes it's overwhelming, just an overload of information. And we need that detox time to really take our mind off of gaming for a little while and let our body and mind detox and then be open to then start up again another day. Just some thoughts, but I think it's helped me a lot. It's helped me not to be as stressed. If you look at me, I'm not as stressed or anxious doing these videos. I think because I'm really smart about the prep time now. Not as smart as I think I need to be, but I'm getting better. Finally, and the most important and number 7 point of my GM tip, family is most important. I think sometimes as a gamer and as a GM, I forget how important my family is. I forget how important mini GM is. I forget how important my son is. I forget how important my oldest daughter is, and her schooling. I forget how important my fiance, the wonderful woman that supports me in all these things, is. I think I forget how important my sisters are, and my cousins, and nieces, and everyone else in my life that's family. I am so absorbed in my hobby sometimes that I forget the people that are most important to me. And what do they say? Where you spend your most time is what's most valuable to you. And when my game is much more important than my family, I've got some real problems, honestly. I love gaming, but it's not why I exist. It's not my existence in life to always game. My family is. And if I give them the right amount of time, love, TLC, consideration, gratitude, then when I do game, it's going to be a much more pleasant experience. And they're going to respect me more and they're going to support me more. The amount that my fiance supports me in my gaming is just amazing. And I don't say that lightly. She is not, and for most of you who have added her, she is not an RPGer. She will be, I hope, one day, but she's not right now. And nor does she have the inkling to want to really dive into it all. I think it intrigues her at times, and there's times that she wants to step into it. But I've been very slow in pushing it because I really don't want her turned off by it and to have a negative experience. So I appreciate how much she supports me, and I try to do the same with her hobbies. She's a puzzler, she's an adult coloring person, and I mean by adult, I'm not talking X rated, I'm talking adult. Those of you who do it know what I'm talking about. She loves to do different craft things and bake. She is very much the geekus in the fact that of the shows she loves. But at the same time, she is not necessarily a gamer. And that's okay. I appreciate how much she supports me. And she does. She buys me a lot of materials for this game. I wouldn't have probably half of what I have if it wasn't for her going out and doing it. She really loves that I love this game and she really supports my hobby in it. And I appreciate that. And she's invested money into it just like I have her. Now, again, my money probably nowhere near what hers is in supporting me. So I want to make sure I really give my family the credit due and really spend the time and do that. And remember that, folks, when you're gaming and you've got a significant other, don't leave them out. Don't make gaming more important than them. Include them, be grateful for them, mention them, give thanks for them. It goes back to Thanksgiving kind of thing, but it's really true. And I think sometimes if we learn that lesson, it's going to be a good thing in our life. So those are the 7 things I took away this year as a GM. I hope some of them touched you and maybe helped you as well. I look forward to doing the goals for 2017. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I think, really my challenge to you before you watch the next video is write out your goals. Make out like 5 to 6 goals for the next year. And really think about what your 5 to 6 goals are as either a GM or gamer and what you want to grow in and improve and do better at and to really excel at in 2017. And then look back at the end throughout the year. I'd say once a quarter, just take a look at how you're doing on those goals. Get other opinions. Ask people. Ask people you're with, how am I doing with this? I really made it a goal. I wanted to see, am I growing in this? I think it makes a big difference when you do that. And I think it makes you much better at what you do, and it's going to be much more fun for you. So, again, thank you for this. 20 minutes are here. Thank you for GM tips and watching, and we'll talk to you soon.